Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. In case you didn't recognise her, that's Emma Stone, and she's about 5'6", so she's more or less the same height as me, maybe a centimetre or so taller than me. So the inevitable question, if I was super wealthy, would I date her? Nope, Emma's happily married, so she's completely off the dating scene. If she was single, would I date her if I was super wealthy and we got to meet? The same answer is no. Emma's husband is 6'2", or about 8 inches taller than me. So Emma, like the majority of women, prefers guys who are taller than them. So it doesn't matter how rich I was, my height would count against me, so I wouldn't even bother approaching her, let alone asking her out on a date, because she's sort of out of my league, and I knew I'd be on a hiding to nothing. So, enough about Emma. As you know, the saying, men age like fine wine and women age like milk. Well, that's starting to have profound impacts across the Western world, as there's a thing called invisible woman syndrome. I found that out by coming across this. This is in the MSN as Microsoft News, which I get by on here as that. And this was an article that popped up on Sunday when that happened. I thought it would be interesting to have a little bit look around to find out more about this. And you can see at 60 she posed without filters images that denounce the invisibility of women. Now that is Paulina Porizkova, Czech and Swedish American model and actress. You may have recognized her. She was married, 2 sons, and her husband, he got ill and she sort of abandoned him. If you don't recognize her, that's her former husband. As you can see, he's a lot taller than her, and that's what she was when she's in her prime, and that's what she looks like now. Now she's complaining, caused a sensation of appearing without makeup. With this gesture she announced the poor visibility of women over 50 in media and society, while simultaneously celebrating self-acceptance. And dressing up in front of the camera is a feminist act. That's what she looks like at 60. It's not worth watching, but you can do it if you want by just clicking it on. Inspiration for women of all ages. This moment of sincerity is widely praised on social media. Well, they will, where comments express admiration and gratitude. Users laundered the message of self-esteem and feminine solidarity. In other words, they've found another bandwagon to jump on, highlighting the importance of normalizing beauty in women over 50. Paulina Porizkova thus embodies a powerful example of self-love and empowerment. They always say that. And beyond this look, in today's video, she shares a simple daily life, stating that she spends most of her time writing in front of her computer. This transparency adds the impact of her gesture, showing that authenticity and glamour can coexist at any age. And she reminds us that women's visibility should never diminish with age. Well, guys' visibility tends to vanish as soon as a woman reaches her prime and she thinks she can do better. And says her message is imbued with a rare authenticity in a highly codified world of social media, invites to rethink our beauty standards, and we celebrate the diversity of women's bodies by fully embracing her 60 years old. She paves the way for a fairer, more inclusive and more inspiring representation offering all women the opportunity to see themselves reflected and reclaim ownership of their image. What a load of guff. If that she looks 60, not bad for 60, but she's still 60. But guys don't want a 60-year-old. Guys would prefer a woman like that. Let's see. What would you rather date? Someone who looks like that, or someone who looks like that? Get rid of that. Now, this is the invisible woman syndrome. Looking around, I found this. PCAR. Apparently it's Pennsylvania Coalition of Advanced Respect. So if you're an American in Pennsylvania, this is a woman's refuge thing, and they could be financed by American tax dollars. So some of your tax dollars are going to this place. Invisible woman syndrome can make aging hard. If you drop down, a survey has studied 2,000 women revealed that by the time they reached the age of 51, many women believed that they had become invisible to men. Only 15% of the women felt they had a very high or very high confidence in any area of their lives, and 46% thought that no one understood or addressed what aging and older women go through. No mention of what happens to men as they age, and they get rejected by women in their prime. Unless, of course, the guy was Chad or Tyrone, of course. But it says, whoops, being a maturation of physical features, an empty nest is being ignored or overlooked in public and social settings. There's an overwhelming feeling of being invisible or irrelevant for many women over 50. A lot of guys in their 20s to 30s are invisible and irrelevant to women who think they can do better. But here's the kicker. The invisibility and irrelevance that these women feel is actually backed up by numbers. Actually, one number 49, the year before they turned 50. It turned out that lots of data, including metrics in health, employment assets, domestic violence, because it's the women's site, and sexual abuse stop at age 49. The explanation of this is limited age framework, and it stems at a focus on women of reproductive age. And then more yada yada. But this is PCAR. Looking around further, I found this, School of Self-Image. Now this is a woman's site aimed at women who are undergoing the aging process, which is natural, and it's more of a help for women to overcome the aging process and giving them inspiration to carry on because there's nothing they can do about it. You can see, as we all get older, including me, I can see myself aging. It says, according to the findings, 70% of women believe they become invisible as they get older, starting at their age 52. Furthermore, around 64% feel that women tend to be less visible than men, putting the phenomenon squarely in society's obsession with youth and its penchant of being ageist and sexist. You notice the slipping that in to blame men for it. I don't want to lament society's ridiculous standards for relevance and visibility, nor do I want to go with the ideas that women should just quietly and gracefully get into agreement with being invisible because they are aging, by embracing her wisdom and self-awareness, etc., etc. These things are wonderful and applicable, sure, but what I want to talk today is about aging and staying visible. Then we have all the advice what women should do that are getting on in years. And she says she has an elegant, beautiful friend in her late 60s who always says, screw aging gracefully. I'm fighting it every step of the way. That's why there's so much money to be made in makeup and cosmetic procedures for women. And then visibility of the mindset. I once heard someone say the word age is just an acronym for annually gaining enlightenment. Well, wherever turns you on. And as invisible women have maintained an empowering lifestyle, you notice that word again, empowering, which means so many things. Participating in personal development, that could be going to the gym, applying makeup, etc. Staying centered, mindful, never conscious of my inner dialogue. That could be talking to yourself. Cherishing myself. You notice only women tend to do that. Keeping promises to myself and others, showing up for myself and others vibrantly and powerfully. If you ever find yourself feeling visible at any age or any reason, it's up to you to find your gateway to visibility. Yeah, but you're still aging, and it shows on your face like it does on that lady. And then it's more yada yada. I'll actually put all these links below so you can have a good read of it yourself. It says, whilst it's true that this phenomenon is called the invisible woman syndrome, such a syndrome does not have to be your fate. You get to decide your place in the world, not them. Alison Carpenter, a psychologist who practices in New York, she opinions that if a woman is complicit in a society where women are routinely objectified, well, sex does sell, she can't help but start to feel invisible when society says that the object is no longer desirable, irrelevant, or worthy of attention. Well, that's obvious. You put a beautiful young woman on a poster in the middle of Times Square and she'll receive attention, the picture. And you put a woman who's 60 in the same outfit on the same poster and she won't get as much attention as a beautiful young woman. Sex sells. That's why the Sydney Sweeney advert made the American Eagle jeans stocks go through the roof. And a woman whose self-image is down will likely continue to objectify herself. When you elevate your self-image, you elevate your life, you become and stay visible. In other words, women, they're gonna do things that men will notice about them. But it doesn't work. Guys look at women differently than women think guys look at women. Moving on, I found this, Booming Encore. I didn't find any date when this was written. Fighting the Invisible Woman Syndrome, I refuse to be irrelevant. If you're an older woman and have never experienced the feeling of being invisible, you're probably not imagining it. This was written by another woman, the founder of Booming Encore. And you drop down if you're an American, you might have seen the comedy Grace and Frankie on American TV. This is quite funny. I watched it before I did this video, and it explains everything that these articles are saying. They go to the store, find themselves being totally ignored. Now, sadly, aging men and women are just equal. Remember, guys, men age like fine wine, women age like milk. So if you're an older woman and never experienced the feeling of being invisible, you are probably not imagining it. Believe it or not, this is actually something called the Invisible Woman Syndrome, like I've said. In the article titled Invisible Woman Syndrome, do you have it? Let's see what that brings up. Click on that. This was done in 2016, so it's not a modern thing. This is going back at least 10 years. With, remember, fourth wave feminism started around 2012. So this is 4 years into fourth wave feminism. If women start to no longer be attractive, which is what some people consider, if a woman ages, then she becomes less relevant. The same doesn't apply to men, because as they get older, they get more respect. If anything, it doesn't really matter what they look like. True. A guy, as he ages, he gets grey hairs, but it's a sign of maturity and worldly wisdom. A woman gets grey hairs, she's just an old woman. He says it seems that the deep added societal view of the role of a woman is the main culprit of the syndrome. If a woman is not seen as it being either attractive or filling a role of a mother, there is an underlying belief that they no longer have any supposed influence and are then often ignored and deemed invisible. So we go back to that. If she's single, remember 2030, 45 to 52% of American women will be single and unmarried, no children. If she's like that, she gets the aging process, and it's a double whammy. It says, women have worked hard over the years to fight for equal rights and opportunities, and look where that's got them. Masses and masses of single women complaining men no longer want to date them. We need to now make sure that this is extended to include women of any age. In other words, the feminists are going to double down on men, saying they don't, because men don't want to date them. After all, no one should ever feel invisible, and we are definitely not irrelevant. Guys have been invisible to women for a long time. So the women know what men feel like now. Moving on. I found this. Medium, the invisible woman, how society fades women out of careers and recognition too early. This was done January 22nd this year. Does aging feel like a career death sentence for women? Depends what job they're in. Once again, that lady, Canva Pro, what was she doing when she was in her prime years? And she didn't have the wrinkles, and she had the bloom of youth. Like that. See? Says, so women are put out to pasture before their time. Women are living long and have much more to offer in experience and talent. Depend what talent the field is in. And yet they're quietly pushed out of their careers before it is their time. Slowly and quietly women are becoming invisible, and no one notices how it happens. The guys become invisible and nobody notices how it happens. Suddenly at a certain age you become irrelevant without knowing what happened or why. Research shows that ageism disproportionately affects women, intensifying the challenge of gender and bias. We've got the same old thing about the pay gap thing in the workplace. Starts around 47 when women start to experience empty nest syndrome. Well, they managed to get a husband and become a mother, so what did they expect? Perhaps you feel you're no longer needed at home or work. And according to a 22 report, nearly 72% of women aged 45 to 74 have experienced or witnessed age discrimination at work, compared to 57% of men in the same age group. You shouldn't be working at 74. Here in Britain, the retirement age is 66. Soon as I reached 66, I just quit work. That was it. Me done. I'd had 51 years of it, and I didn't want any more. And one issue is the perception of aging women. It's like they see you are less adaptable or innovative. Well, women are not really as innovative as men. This leads to missed opportunities for promotions and leadership roles. Well, you've seen what happens when a woman gets in a leadership role in some American companies. The place goes to shit. The American chain called Cracker Barrel apparently had a woman in its leading role, and I went downhill. So, you tell me. Well, anyway, I found this in the New York Post. Women feel invisible at a shocking low age. Study reveals why they blame fashion. I like crop tops on the young women. Hey up. $1 million heist in Soho. There must be Soho in New York. Anyway. Invisibility is the curse of being a wannabe glamour gal in her mid-30s or older. A woman in her mid-30s or older shouldn't even be thinking of being a glamour gal. There's a saying over here, in Britain, it'll be a case of mutton dressed up as lamb. New study that found that the fashion world makes women feel invisible by age 36. Excuse me. This research sheds light on the challenges many women face as they age, including feeling overlooked in various areas of life. If you drop down, UK-based Input Fashion survey found that 75% of women feel mainstream designers and outlets prioritise younger demographics, leaving older ladies feeling undeserved, overlooked and unacknowledged. But when these older ladies were in this younger demographics, they didn't feel that. Time moves on and people age. It's clear that social attitudes towards aging, particularly for women, you notice it's always when women have a problem, it's headline news, but when men have a problem, they just get ignored. Play a significant role in these experiences. It's a shame that a recent phenomenon called Invisible Women Syndrome does seem to exist. It's a phenomenon where women of a certain age are dismissed or devalued in some way. And then, this bit is the interesting one. And Gen Z girls as young as 18 are already beginning to dread the age-related snub, fearing that society will automatically deem them unattractive hags by their 30th birthday. But the not-so-stunning, inspiring New York courtier, Bashiva Hay, 42, to debut a clothing line geared towards celebrating the members of her gender in all phases of life. In other words, as a fashion designer is going to design clothes for older women. And I feel like I'm growing and evolving. The fashion industry isn't necessarily loving women who are aging. It never has. One of the things about being forgotten and invisible is that you can just do whatever you want. True. Says Hay, who only casts models age over 40, including actress Molly Ringwald, and the 2024 New York Fashion Week. And then, unfortunately, the average belle of age 35 seems to find it hard to find the fun in being ignored, said the class poll. Poor dears. She should see how men feel. A staggering 45% of women admitted feeling unnoticed in social settings, while 24 and 23% say they were disregarded due to their ages at work and by the healthcare system, respectively. Now they know how men feel, and approximately 39% copped to feeling invisible after struggling to find clothes that caters to them as they get older, and 37% attributed that exclusion to changes in their appearance. Now, what were they all doing in their 20s when they're in their prime? Chasing a career, no doubt. And then, in the workplace, 29% of these aged 40 and over said they felt less visible since entering this decade, and 60% believe their opinions were often dismissed due to age. Well, is there anything like Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm, Steven Spielberg, and tell you what she was like? And then, women in this period of their lives should feel the height of their fabulousness and confidence, not invisible. Advise seasoned smoke shows to wear, which makes you happy to avoid the pressures of dancing to the drumbeat of trends. And then tips how these women can feel better, confidence, invest in quality, be colourful, keep fit, accessories, update your hairstyle, pay attention to details, have fun, well, they were having fun in the 20s, chasing Chad and Tyrone. And then we have the comments, men in their youth are treated as disposable labour or cannon fodder, so I don't want to hear women complain about losing their privileges that are solely based on youth and beauty. As I've gotten old, I want to be invisible. I don't crave attention like I used to. People change as they get older. I could care less what people think anymore. And then more comments. And the final thing, because this video's probably getting on now, women don't prefer men the same age and women prefer younger women. Here's the truth. Now if you drop down you get graphs, and nobody on this view could ever deny that at least aesthetically pleasing. Men prefer women between 20 and 25, of course. In fact, the data shows clearly that a woman's physical attraction peaks at 21. Now, you got two graphs, how male match preferences change with age. So a guy, he's 28, he's got his shit together, he's got his career going. The youngest age allowable match, 28. There. See, the woman is 21. Even a guy is 48. The youngest woman he's going to be looking at is 32. The oldest allowable match, again, the guy is 28. The oldest one he's looking at is 34. With a guy, the oldest, if he's 48, the oldest woman he's be looking at is 50. But a guy in this age group, he's got usually a woman in this age group, and the guy that this age group, if he's not a MGTOW, he's probably married to the woman that he met when he's in this age. Now if you drop down, you get the woman's match preference with age. See, she's 22, she's in her prime. The youngest allowable match is 22, same age. But the oldest one, she's 22, is 28. But the guy, he's reaching his prime now. So if she's lucky, she can get him. But you got the far end, a woman 28, remember, 30 is the wall, post-wall, post-menopausal, 48. The youngest match she goes for is 40. But a 40-year-old guy doesn't want a 48-year-old woman. A 40-year-old guy is after a woman 24 to 30. As you go back to this, a 40-year-old guy, the allowable age, there, 26 years old. The maximum age for a 40-year-old guy, if you go up, is 42. But this is the average. So a 40-year-old guy, if he goes up, see, 38. You drop down, he doesn't want a 48-year-old woman. So the oldest allowable match for a 48-year-old woman is 54. No, 55, sorry. But a 55-year-old guy, he's probably been divorced, he likes his peace and quiet, he's got his hobbies, he doesn't want to be lumbered with a 48-year-old woman. So, it looks like she's screwed. She had a chance and she blew it. And we got the invisible women syndrome. And if she looks like that, she ain't going to get a young guy. And this is coming mainstream and showing it in a comedy setting. But it's a real thing. Invisible women, how society fades out of careers and recognition. And it's coming into social media because articles like the New York Post are covering it now. I think I'm well over the 20 minutes, so it looks like us guys are holding the line and women are starting to panic because they're feeling invisible, and guys, it's not being affected because we're used to being ignored by women. We've had it all through our lives, so we can adapt, but women are now starting to feel what we felt over the decades since feminism started. Right? You know the routine, people like, dislike, etc. It's completely up to you. So, yeah, I'll see if I can find any more on this, but it could be a different topic altogether. So, until next Monday, that's it from me. Bye-bye.